Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first Social Impact Executive Roundtable for 2021. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic of growth and how to scale your organisation and your impact. So by way of introduction, my name is Vivian Stevens. I'm a director in the Social Impact Consulting practice. Now, we are delighted to be hosting this hybrid event with many people here attending in the room, as well as guests joining us virtually, both here in Australia and internationally. This morning, we'll be hearing from our guest speaker, Claire Robs, Chief Executive of Life Without Barriers, who will be sharing insights into the incredible growth story of LWB and the successes, challenges, and lessons learned through their journey. Now, Life Without Barriers is a leading social purpose organisation working in over 440 communities across every state and territory in Australia. It employs over 8,000 staff and supports around 25,000 people each year in the areas of disability, children and family services, aged care, mental health, AOD, and support for asylum seekers and refugees. Now, I'm sure many of you in the room and online are facing more complex choices than ever before. As business models are disrupted, our customer expectations change and government policies evolve. Undoubtedly, the choices you make today will shape your future success. And hopefully the insights you gain from this morning's session will help you better navigate these choices when you leave the room here today. So with that objective in mind, we're going to spend the first 20 minutes facilitating a Q&A with TJ and Claire, and then we'll open up to the floor to discuss any questions you may have, which for those of you online, you can ask via the chat function. Now, without further ado, I'll hand over to TJ and Claire.
Thank you, Viv, and welcome everyone. We are really excited to be hosting today's Social Impact Executive Roundtable, and I'm glad to share this stage with Claire Robs as our guest speaker. So I was just saying to Claire, I've known Claire for 10 years now, and it has been incredible to watch the growth and impact of LWB, Life Without Barriers, under her leadership. So Claire became the CEO in 2011 and has successfully developed LWB to be one of the leading disability providers in Australia, as well as a very trusted social purpose organisation. Over this time, the impact of LWB has grown exponentially. It delivers over 700 million in government services across the country, in 400 communities across both regional, remote and metro Australia, with over 8,000 employees. So it's, a sizable organisation doing great work. She has a strong reputation within the sector and within government, and is someone who's really known for her ability to partner genuinely to find better ways to deliver outcomes for vulnerable Australians and communities. Unfortunately for us, during the COVID pandemic, Claire was sought out by many government agencies for her advice in terms of the impact on COVID on vulnerable people in Australia. So over the years, I've known Claire. There are two things that I've personally admired about her. I'm going to make her blush. The first is her personality, her positivity, and her can-do attitude. That's cascades both her and the organisation. And I'm sure, as she'll share today, the journey has had many ups and downs. And the work that LWB does is both confronting and challenging at the front line. Yet the team always have this positive can-do attitude that's focused very much on solving the problem at hand, but also having a vision for systemic change. How do we really influence change at scale to make it better for the broader system? And the second is her humility. So, it is one of the largest social purpose organisations, but just like Claire, LWB is understated and humble, and they really are focused on their vision of creating a more equitable and fairer Australia. And I think, that's exactly what we need in today's kind of society. So it's for these reasons that we thought Claire would be a great guest speaker for our first event post-COVID, particularly as leaders look to the future and really think about reimagining service delivery in light of everything that's happened. And I'm a firm believer of how do we build back better post-COVID. So Claire, to get you warmed up, I'm going to start with a little icebreaker. So the team and I are really curious to know, when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grow up? And how did you end up in the seat that you are today, CEO of Life Without Barriers?
Thank you, Sharani. Well, when I hear the introduction, I wonder that myself. That's a little bit awkward to follow, particularly in a room of and online of peers who all have their own sort of successes and stories, but very generous comments. Thank you. Yeah, well, when I was a child, I knew I wanted to do something like this, which sounds a bit trite, but actually is very true. And it started really vividly. I was 10. And I was on a holiday in Rome with my family, and we were living over in Saudi Arabia for a few years. So we got this awesome opportunity to travel to different places when we came home for holidays. And we're in Rome, and it was winter, and we went to the Vatican, actually, and nothing against the Vatican in this story, but it is what it is. And we were there, and it was, all tourists and everything. It was all awesome, and we were very fortunate. And there was a woman with a very, very little baby, and I'm going to do this without getting upset, very little baby, there, right outside the kind of entry of the Vatican. And I couldn't believe everyone was walking past, and it really, really upset me. What upset me most was that my family kind of did the same. And when I was like, oh, this isn't all right, what's this? How can you have this contrast right in front of us? It was cold and this little baby. And my family were like, that's just life, that's the reality of things. And I was like, no, actually, if that is, it's not actually okay. And so I knew then that I wanted to do something that could do my bit to make that a different situation. I thought my goal actually was to be a cardigan wearing social worker, because I'd seen it in the movies and on television. I thought, yeah, I reckon that's me, there with my little typewriter, laptops weren't around at the time, little typewriter, and my cardigan on, fighting the fight for people. So it didn't exactly turn out like that. I'm not exactly that, but kind of in that career, I went to university and studies, and then have been in the sector my entire life, and in different discussions that I have from time to time about what might I do after Life Without Barriers. I just can't see myself not having something to do with positive social impact.
Oh, fantastic story. So on the topic of today, in terms of growth, why has scale and growth been important to Life Without Barriers? And I've heard you say before, it's not growth for growth's sake, but keen to understand what drives you and LWB.
Yeah. So I think in this one, everyone's kind of talking about growth in different sectors now. It's a kind of catchphrase in lots of ways. But I think it is important we split growth and scale. Growth for me, and then for Life Without Barriers, because I've been there a long time.
How many years?
I know, been there so long. I've been at Life Without Barriers 17 years and Chief Executive 10. At some stage, someone's going to tap me on the shoulder, I know, but not yet. I'm not ready to go yet, so I've got more to do. So growth in that time has been really fundamentally driven by, back to that story that I told at the beginning, that it's kind of, who am I and who are we to say that we're doing enough? Who are we to say, no, we can only support 100 children or this many people with a disability or only in these communities? Now, you have to do what you're doing well. So you can't just keep growing because you want to do more, but actually not do a very good job of it. But, that's what we get paid to do, and we should be able to do, and we have to be good enough to deliver good services. But it's this whole idea of, if you close the door and you say that's as much as we can do, what about the person at the other side of the door? Well, they don't matter. They don't get entry to the system. You can't help them. And so I always have gone, when people have come and said to us, we started in WA in Western Australia because government had some children that were in residential care, did not need to be there. Some children need to be in residential care, it's good for them, but for others, you can be in family-based care, and these were younger children. So we went across and they said, oh, we've got this group of children. We said, well, we'll find foster carers for them. And when we said that, we didn't know how we were going to do that. But we worked it out, and then you learn how to do that. But for us, it was like, well, that's not all right. That we need to be better. The system needs to be better. So that's really driven our growth, is that, and you can hear, it's really important to me that I don't ever want to be too good or put myself or LWB first before people that are in need of that support. And then the second thing is scale, is practicality. So the practicalities of when you're a dispersed organisation like ours, the reason that we have different programs, so disability, aged care, mental health, etc., is because in regional communities, that's how you get sustainable scale. That's how you get good enough scale that you can employ people that have the talent and the capability to then run really good services. It's difficult to do some of the things that we all do small. Now you definitely can, and I'm not saying you can't run small organizations, but it is a bit difficult sometimes to do that in a diverse regional setting. And then the other benefits of scale would be the realities are that it creates opportunities. So people want to partner with you, opportunities come your way, your reputation is known, and you get really good talent, great partnerships like we've got with Thorani and the team. And some of that comes because of your capacity for impact through scale as well. The Child, Youth and Family Programme, the growth really came from that absolute desire to offer something different. And that really that growth came in New South Wales. And then what that growth did in New South Wales was then really message to all the other jurisdictions that we could actually solve some of the challenges for government. And then from that, then the other jurisdictions ended up coming and having conversations. And sometimes we approached them in, like WA, we went over there intentionally and said, we think we've got some value to bring. In other instances, jurisdictions approached us based on our New South Wales story. Yeah. In disability services, one of the key decisions was really around the divestment of government services, which is a number of people in this room, and I'm sure online, have faced those decisions or made those decisions. And the reason that we made that, and it economically didn't fantastically add up, actually, financially and risk-wise, as many people know. It was an interesting business case to try to put forward commercially to our board, with lots of kind of hairs on it, and that's the ones we knew about. But I distinctly recall having this very clear conversation with our team, who were saying, I don't think we should do it. And I said, listen, the NDIS is supposed to be about choice and control for people with a disability, and we were part of the fight for that. Actually, what the risk is that choice and control is brought to people who already have some sense of a voice and some sense of agency and power, and not the people with the most complex needs. The people with some of the most complex needs are sitting in those government services. And what we want to do is bring those services into LWB and then do everything we can to bring that genuine choice and control that some of those people have never had in their life. And the reason that I tell that story is because actually when things went with the divestment and the transfer of New South Wales and then Victoria, and some of our teams and our board and everything were thinking, let's please remember why we even did this. We were able to go back to, hold on a second, this is why we did this. So it's not about just bringing it to life without barriers and running it as it is. We did this to then change and bring that choice and control. And that clarity of purpose and drive back to the people that we support and serve got us over some really difficult moments in both of those transitions. And we're not through it, so I'm hoping it gets us over a few others as well. So I think that we've had decisions fundamentally built on what was in the interests of the people we were trying to support and serve, and then a practical kind of lens over that. But the other piece is definitely still around the decisions around scale played in. So we knew that when you get to certain scale, you need certain talent to run safe services and quality services. So we know that sweet spot from experience. And so we did intentionally target some of those places too. So it would be both purpose and practicalities.
Perfect. And how have you balanced the pursuit of sustainable, profitable growth? So we have a lot of clients that pursue growth at the top line. And then, I don't know, maybe when you start it was similar. And there was challenges in terms of sustainability. Yeah. Or a deficit position. How have you managed that over the journey? Because I think when you started, it was a $200 million organization. If I'm
chief exec. Well, probably in the budget, obviously, and last night too. But I mean, profitability in the not-for-profit sector is, becoming more and more challenging, as in some ways it probably ought to be. So for me, the first kind of point I wanted to make here, because I don't want to tell people how to suck a lemon through this session. I hate when people tell me how to suck a lemon again and again. So I didn't want to try and do that for all of you. So I'm not going to list all the obvious things. on this one, the part I thought was, and I think this matters, is that if we make a loss, we don't make just less of a profit in not-for-profit land. Like, we actually go right below the line.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, not all of us, but for a lot of us, that is, you can only do that for so many years in a row. And admit that is a little bit different to making less of a margin if you're a commercial organization, because it's a very, very small room for error. Very small, very thin layer that you have got that you can play with. So I think that's the first piece that I never, no matter how big the top line's gotten, which is ultimately generally vanity, right? So no matter how big the top line is, we've never really forgotten how thin the kind of margin for error is for us. And then the other thing is we have had really active conversations over our maturity with board and exec around what sustainability and profitability looks like. And in those conversations, some of them we're a bit more sophisticated now, so we've got a proper risk appetite and all that sort of business. Now, we used to kind of do it different ways. We had like train tracks, had a really good visual on train tracks, and then we had a really good visual on controlled and uncontrolled airspace and things like that. So lots of different things, right? But ultimately kind of getting that alignment. And in that conversation, the other piece I wanted to make is that no matter how big the top line got, we never got too, I don't think we're too smart for ourselves. So we never kind of, and you said it in the intro actually, Sarani, which is interesting about the humility, we never really let that go to our head. So we're careful with like loss leaders, which can actually just be making operational deficits and you don't know how to fix it. Loss leaders, the term that I really hate, negative growth. It's like, you mean, how is there growth in there? I don't even understand how that, it's like an oxymoron, right? What is that? So we're careful with all of that. And we're very careful with money. So we manage money like we're probably a smaller, where's the next meal coming from on the table organization. And I think that's about our roots because we've been there and we know what that's like. And there's enough of us still around that know what that's like. So we're careful with that. And I think the final one I wanted to make is that in the kind of earlier years, we used to do our business planning and strategy sessions and think one day we're going to be good enough to get a recurrent contract from government, like multiple years in advance, right? Because the way LWB grew was one child or one person with a disability at a time. I think we were almost 100 mil in income before we actually got a recurrent contract. And we thought that was pretty awesome when we got it. Actually, at the time, we thought it was painful to do one by one and maturity was getting a recurrent contract. But funnily enough, all of that discipline actually comes in super handy when you fast forward some years and you're in the NDIS and individualized funding for children, adults, etc. We've kind of got that background, but it all comes back to the individual client. So I think that's some of the points that I wanted to make that I think helps us and hopefully will continue to help us find that sweet spot and get that balance right.
I think a lot of people can resonate in terms of the discipline that's required for sustainable growth. You touched on this a little bit in terms of the board. We work with some organizations, but the board can be a bit risk averse, more focused on kind of minimizing downside risk and a bit nervous about exploring upside risk. So, keen to get your thoughts in terms of how you've brought the board on a journey. They're a critical and important friend for a CEO. And what role they've played in shaping the growth story for LWB.
Good question. So I will say I'm really, really, really blessed with an enabling board. I've got a board that do go really hard on the finances and the risk and the governance, etc. But they've always been able to come to the table with an open stance. And the same appetite that drives me around that next person through the door needing that support. And the fact that our entire raison d'etre is to try to do better, and not have the wrong situation as such. Our board feel that. So there's definitely years in there where our board felt like they had the tiger by the tail. And I was on the management side. And the truth is they only really had probably like a little pinky on the tail at different stages. And look, that wasn't an intentional thing by us. We didn't intentionally think, oh, you know, it just, you know, it just goes really fast. And before you know it, you go, wait a minute, we're a little more out of control than we want to be. And I'll talk about that in a moment. We've got to get that back, get ourselves back in control, and then, you know, the balance is back there. But I've been really lucky to have a board that trusted me, could have the really difficult kind of conversations, push an issue around, back me, and then, which means I could really be upfront with them about when I got things wrong. And because when we've gotten things wrong, by being able to be upfront with the board, it means we can change things rather than keep on pretending that things are fine when they're not. And I think for me, we haven't got a board of, you know, big personalities or people with big commercial connections, but actually, I think their role has really been that enabling role and having that trusted relationship with me and the executive. And that's really been a major contributor to why we are where we are.
Fantastic. So give us a war story, reflecting back on your growth journey. You know, what didn't work that you would do differently in hindsight? Because I'm sure there are parallels for us all to learn or you avoid.
Yeah. Look, I think as with any of these things, what did work and then what didn't work is the other side of the coin, right? So what did work was the 1,000 flowers blooming at different times in this organization, and the localized, empowered decision-making to be responsive to what local, fundamentally, it's usually state or federal government wanted us to deliver, community. So we really had quite at different points in time, had a very distributed decision-making so that people could make decisions for what their local partner or government wanted them to be doing. And that enabled us to grow because we solved problems for government. So ultimately, government had issues with particular clients or particular programs or organizations that were struggling. We were able to solve them with agility locally, and we grew. So that's the strength. The negative to that, the challenge to that then is that you end up with 1,000 flowers, not all of which are blooming beautifully, and not all of which even look remotely like each other. And so at different times, you know, and I'm struggling to hold this thing, I'm going to use my hands. At different times, we've had to then go, let's tidy it up. So let's get it in shape a little bit. Carve off some of that stuff that doesn't look quite so pretty, fix those problems, lift those rocks. Right, let's go again. And I think the learning in there for me, and something we're trying to be much better at, is when you're a growing, diversifying organization, some people can only do certain chapters with you. And they're awesome for that chapter, right? Like really great for that chapter. And we are getting better at recognizing that and not expecting everyone to go the whole distance. And trying to have really healthy conversations about what people bring, what they're in it for, where their sort of superpower is, what's their superpower, and then being really honest when actually that chapter's done for them. So we mark LWB in sort of 18-month chapters, really quite openly now, so that it gives everyone the opportunity to go, well, I'm doing this chapter. You might do a few. But we might have a conversation, or you might have a conversation with us. It's a two-way thing when your chapter is kind of done. And that is enabling us to better bring in talent, keep talent, but not have people overstay their welcome for them or for the organization. And for a growing, diversifying organization, that's critical, because with a small margin, you need the best team for that chapter. You can't be having any residual people there that aren't in the main game as well. So I think that's the lesson is to have to be able to be really upfront about that and to create that safe space with your people so that people know it's all right. And that's the way we do things around here. And we're getting better at that.
Excellent. So I mean, you've just gone through a similar process as you start planning for strategy 2025. So looking forward, what is on the horizon for LWB? And I know it's given you a new lease on life in terms of real excitement. So
yeah, it has. I was saying to Rani before when we met a couple of weeks ago, you know, and you're all leaders in organizations, but we're on our next adventure as Life Without Barriers, which is really exciting. And there'll be a whole culmination of things, including the shocking year that was last year for everyone here, you know, in Australia and in the world, even more so. And so we've got a strategy that has really brought an energy and an excitement across the organization. And a little bit linked to your introduction, Thorani, it's quite simple. We're doing three things. We want to deliver great services. And that means we actually need to know what great is beyond nice case studies or outputs. Deliver great services. We want to influence systemic barriers, and we've picked some of them. And we want to impact future generations. And the rationale for us is, at the end of the day, we don't want our strategy to be about all the sort of sexy stuff on the trimmings, right? Which often we do. We want it to be about the main game. So we are about delivering great services. So that's our front and center. And that's the thing we need to do most. Most of our energy needs to go into that, and we need to do that really, really well. But the rationale is that even no matter how good we are at that, and no matter how awesome the people that we support are at taking risks in their life to live the life they want to live, the reality is we all know those are systemic barriers. And so we just have that duty to do something about them as well. But their main really complicated barriers like employment for people with disability, education for kids, overrepresentation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids in the care system. And so we got to do that in partnership, hopefully with lots of you and lots of other organizations and the people that we support to try to deal with them. And then if you're an organization that genuinely cares for the people and the groups that you're representing, then we actually have to care about what their future looks like. So for the child in care today, the young girl in care today, I need to be thinking about what I need to be doing so she's not the 20-year-old in a family violence situation, having her own children removed and then back into the cycle. So, and for people with a disability, surely we can't think we've all landed in inclusion and diversity for people with a disability because we've got the NDIS. So what's that future? And how do we make sure that the people we support and those groups don't miss out on the fabulous things in society, like, you know, technology, and get overly impacted by the negative things in society like climate change and pandemic? So we've kind of got this idea of delivering great services, trying to partner to influence those major systemic barriers that our people face, and then actually going, you know what, we really care. Actually, we care about people today and tomorrow. So what are we doing today for tomorrow? And so it's just three things.
And I love that because it links to what you said around the importance of growth and scale, you know, to really make that the second and the third. It's building on the strengths of where you are today and using that ability to get other people a seat at the table to really influence systemic change. So I'm going to open to the floor, but with one last question. What has been the most important lesson in your growth journey that you would want to share with other CEOs and board chairs in the room that are looking to grow or scale their organizations for the same reasons that you spoke to?
So this one for me isn't about the systems, technology, processes, etc. Like that is all super important. And you know, on any given day, we've got great there. And then the next given day, you know, I want to sit in the corner and suck my thumb on our systems, right? So, you know, it just goes like that, right? That's life. For me, it's the purpose and values that with the 8,000 people and about, you know, 3,000 foster carers, that we're trying to want to be part of something bigger. And we want them to do what they do in a particular way. Then for us being able to tap into what we're here for, who we're here for, tap into that purpose and bring our values to life so that actually they're experienced and not on the wall. And as chief exec, I think that, and I've only worked in this sector, so I can't comment on others. I think people in our industry can smell a lack of authenticity. I think that they get it. And I think that if chief executives and boards and that can really like believe in their people, and that's the people we support and the people in the organization and the purpose. And we say at LWB, you might not like the word, but we say you have to love this organization. You have to love what we do and you have to love the people. Then you've kind of got the right to a leadership role round here. So if you can bring that forward and people can sense that in you, then literally, I think people will follow you wherever you want them to follow you. as well as all the other stuff. That for me, that's the critical ingredient, particularly at scale.
Scale.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to open to the floor. I'm sure there are members of the audience that will have questions for Claire. Who wants to start?
Oh, not him.
Of course.
Not having one from him. That would be nice.
Yeah.
I love it.
Look, you've sold the
It's inevitable.
vision.
It's inevitable.
Great presentation. Thanks. The goal of impacting systemic barriers to the ground, I think we all share that. It's incredibly daunting. It's a big challenge, and one of the big problems with the sector is fragmentation.
Yeah.
How important is collaboration to be able to achieve that goal?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we believe in our purpose is to partner with people and change lives for the better, and that's not just the people we support, that's everyone. So we're saying just now that we won't actually do anything really in that systemic space unless we're doing it in collaboration and in partnership. So we're saying that if we can do it alone, we've not picked the right problem, because we ought not be able to, if we're taking on the really wicked community issues, we ought not be able to do that by ourselves. We must do that in partnership and collaboration. And our board have been really supportive around that. I mean, they invest in collaborative initiatives in a number of the sectors that we work in. And in that, we're saying that we want to be, and this is very important to us in this next chapter, we want to be really generous. So we don't want to be an organization that holds stuff. We want to be an organization that is generous with our time, our energy, our partnership, our collegiality, our resources, our IP. You know, it's like, for example, in a lot of to do with the child sexual abuse, etc., we've shared all of that material that we've lots of work we've done, because there's no money to be made in child sexual abuse, right? So if everyone's better at keeping children safe, that can only be a good thing, you know. So I think we're saying that in the systemic barriers space, we will only do it through partnership and collaboration.
Claire, thanks. That was great conversation. Great to hear about the success of the organisation, your leadership. So just in terms of just thinking about the kind of risk and opportunity of that. So you've grown and diversified. Interested in your insights around cost and complexity with diversification. You feel that pain. I'm interested in what your implications are. But equally, the opportunity around more integrated solutions. That's the kind of holy grail. I'm wondering if you're interested in your progress on that aspiration.
Yeah, no, really. And, you know, you guys have got this kind of huge thing you're running. Yeah, I think at this strategy period, we had a really serious think about, you know, are we really adding value and or are we detracting from what we can bring by offering so many different, you know, well, particularly some different groups. I had a particular view that I didn't really think we had a lot to bring. I whisper this because my team are so grumpy at me saying it, but I don't think we had a lot to bring. I hope they're not on the link. They are. Oh God, okay. Sorry. I don't think we had a lot to bring to community-based aged care. And I thought, look, that is a really, really busy space, and there's lots of people that know amazing or do amazing work in that space. I don't think we can bring a lot of value to that. But in doing that, then we had several thousand older people across the country, whilst we were making that decision, took us a little while to think about it, join up to LWB in regional communities. So we had something to offer there. So we decided we're going to stay in it, but we're going to try, Doug, notwithstanding the challenges, to integrate that with some of our disability services firstly in regional settings first, where we're all struggling for really good workforce. We're going to try an integrated model. Now, actually on the ground, we think we can practically do that. Actually, our problem is our systems, actually, you know, our HR systems and our finance systems actually make that very difficult, but our operators and our frontline teams, they figured out how to do it practically. Our problem is our system. So we're nudging towards it. The other kind of piece that I worry about is not only the complexity that comes with diversity, but your lack of attention. So we have a refugee services program. They do amazing work. They are a rock star team, this team. Thank goodness, because they don't get very much attention from us as an organization, but they are really amazing. But it's kind of good that they're amazing because we don't really give them that much attention. And so I worry about, yes, they're great, but would they be better somewhere that just did that? We tried that in the strategy thing, and I was told never to raise that again and never to tell that team that I ever made that comment publicly. I think they're amazing, but it's like, are we sure we're the best people for it? So I think we constantly have this thing about, are we getting our energy in the right places? And definitely have the goal of integrated in some sense on the ground, but our systems are what's going to hold us back, I think, and easier for us to do it in regional settings. Metropolitan would be a lot harder for us. And then, like we were just talking earlier, Doug, the challenge is with the diverse portfolio, ultimately, when that comes up to the top at the macro level and you're working with boards on risk and opportunity, you get a pretty detailed strategic risk statement, let me tell you, because each of the areas, aged care, mental health, children, young people and families, family violence, drug and alcohol, disability, have got royal commissions or different commissions, etc. So I will hold as steady just now, but if we don't find a solution to the integration piece, I think that'll drive some of our decisions going forward. Yeah.
What's a great service? How do you know you're delivering great services, or how will you know when you're delivering great services? And as you scale, how can you make sure you're delivering that systematically?
Yeah, perfect question. Well, we don't know is the answer. Yeah, sorry. We don't know. As a whole sector, we're not very good at that, actually. We all kind of hold up, is it casework ratios? Is it feedback from clients? Like, what is it? But really, as an industry, I don't think we're clear enough about actually what great looks like. Is it the quality standard that a regulator sets? Is it someone's sort of self-funded thing that says for every dollar you invest in us, you get this much return, So what we wanted to do was to say, we want to deliver great services. And you know what the first step is? We actually need to say what great looks like. We need to be able to make that measurable. And then we need to measure ourselves against it publicly and put that in our annual reports and hold ourselves accountable to that. We need to do that in collaboration with the sector. We really believe that that's what great looks like. And ultimately, the first place we need to start is, what does it look like for the people that receive our services? So I don't have the answer just now, but I won't have achieved my business plan if I don't have the answer by the time next year. So come back then and I'll make sure that we share what our thinking is then, because that's the first place we're starting. Well, what does great look like? Yeah.
Should we put a question to the virtual audience?
So Claire, we've had 2 questions come through. So just starting with the first one. How do you find or attract diverse superheroes for each chapter in LWP's journey? And equally, how do you motivate your workforce when there's so much change and transformation within the organisation?
Good question. Crikey. Outside of my expertise a little bit on this one, but I'm sure you all could probably pipe in. On the first one, we think everyone's got a superhero power. So you don't have to find the superheroes. You've got to find the one with the power that matches what you need now. So I know it sounds kind of weird that a professional organization would talk about superpowers, right? But I do it with our, between my husband and I, we got 6 children, and they're all entirely diverse. I didn't birth 6 children, just so we're clear, right? They're a blended family, in case everyone's like, oh my God. So we're a blended family. We've got 6 children, and they're all entirely different, And so we had to find a way so that they could, be cool with their difference. And so we had this thing. It's like, well, actually, that's one of your superpowers, And everyone's got different powers. So we think everyone's got them. You've just got to know what you're looking for the next chapter, and then find the person that's got that superpower. If that's helpful. So we've just, for example, recruited a new director for our people, leadership and culture function. We had the last director was fantastic for the 5 years. We had one of those let's get our show in order here, people moment 5 years ago, where we had, some horrendous thing like 6 to 8 letters of offer templates across the country, or some horrendous thing that makes you just terrifying to say out loud. So we were like, come on, let's get this order. How did that happen? So we brought someone in who did a stellar job at bringing in systems, structures, talent, processes, controls, governance. Awesome. Then we go, actually, that's cool. We want to take that now, but we don't need that. We don't need to get better at that, because now we're just pothole filling. So actually we need a different superpower and style of leadership for this next strategy chapter. So then that person says, actually, you know what? That isn't for me. I've done awesome. I'm going to take my superpower elsewhere. And we've employed a new one who's got a different skill set. So as an example, the second piece on the motivation, I actually think that for the lessons of that, we're looking back to last year. We're looking back to what were the lessons from last year about how we managed to keep a workforce motivated, engaged, more engaged, and getting better engagement scores when they were managing floods, fires, COVID, royal commissions, etc. So there's got to be some lessons and learnings in there for us.
Any other questions from the room? We do it for time.
If not, we've got one more.
Andrew.
So Claire, you talked about building on the strengths of where you as an organisation are today. What would you say are the greatest strengths that LWB has and that you now need to build on?
So undoubtedly, without question, the greatest strength we've got is our people and our values, our culture, undoubtedly. It's at the end of the day, you know, we've all got the systems, processes, evidence-based models, the smarts, etc. That's great. But actually what our core offering is a human being, really. For the majority of the work, it's a relationship. So we're offering people forming relationships with other people. So therefore our teams and their values, the way they do what they do, is the most important asset we have.
Andrew. Yeah.
You asked a bit earlier around the event, so all social purpose organizations started off taking risks, and they're very entrepreneurial. They took chances, and then they get bigger, and they get awards, and they get more conservative, and they don't want to take chances anymore because we're all following, you know, AICD guidelines. And how do you keep that entrepreneurial spirit? It's a problem. Take risk, but at the same time manage the downside.
Yeah, those AICD articles, yeah, they're awesome, right? It's like we have to check them every time just to make sure that we're on it. They're good, but they do create lots of work in governance. Yeah, it's a good question, Andrew. You know, particularly when you've got new directors and new executives and coming in as you grow, you attract a different kind of people with a different risk appetite and experience. So I think that for me, I was saying to people actually yesterday, we're talking about the strategy, there's two things we need to protect against. One is becoming a bureaucracy, because we're pretty good at that, actually. And if we are going to continue to grow, we cannot get more bureaucratic. So that is a real challenge for us. And the other one is conservatism. So the other one is losing that drive and passion and risk-taking that drove us to get here, forgetting that and comfortable, I think, and starting to think that it's more about us and the entity than it is actually about the people that we're serving. Interestingly, when that's come up at our board, and you know, I'm sure the board would be fine with me saying this, when that's come up, been raised at different moments, it's the other board members that actually push back. So there was a moment where we had a particular program in a jurisdiction, not to be named, that was for young people with really complex needs. And we had lots of incidents out of there. We had lots of staff incidents, which of course freaks the board out completely, and lots of client incidents, which oddly we have more of a tolerance for, which annoys me. But anyway, so the board was saying, well, look, this is really impacting your workers' comp. You shouldn't be supporting these people. We're like, what are you talking about? This is what we do. And well, you're going to support them in a safe way. It's like, well, yes, we probably could put plastic around them, but that's not That's not what we do. And it was actually other board directors that stepped in and said, no, this is what we do. We don't do safe, we don't do easy. Actually, what we've got to do is figure out how to do that better for those children and young people. So actually, we should be investing more in that program to get it right, because there's more children like that in the community. So it means I don't have to come in all the time, because we've got some directors that hold that in their heart. But as we do board turnover, you know, let's see how we manage to kind of keep that spark. Yeah.
Any last questions, or Liz is going to close for
We've got
us
5 minutes, and it's my role to close the session.
and get you out on time?
Luckily, I've got 4 or 5 points, but Andrew actually raised one, which you actually kind of led kind of the response, which was the first point, which is that what you've described is that you've been driven by solving problems, and that's entrepreneurial, involves risks and so on, but you've always kind of confronted that. And whenever you go back to why you're doing something, you can always go back to your principles and values, which can justify it. So when questions get raised, you've actually kind of gone through that process of it's a mission and values which you're driving, the reason for doing it. I also like that the fundamental need for control and discipline, and the conversations that you had backwards and forwards around with Doug around the risks of diversification, and that question, are we doing this well? Could it be done better elsewhere? And I've heard 1 or 2 other CEOs who've used that phrase: if somebody else is doing something better, then we should be kind of collaborating and potentially kind of partnering with them or handing over responsibility. So that discipline also includes kind of that fundamental financial discipline. I'm also a big believer in a lot of what we do is relationship based, and CEO and to the board, a trust relationship gives you scope to identify opportunities and then be able to pursue them, whether they are real or not at the end of the day. But the trust relationship gives you that window of opportunity to explore those opportunities. I love the growth chapter bits, and the fact that different people are good in different chapters. I've been involved in organizations which went through a really great growth stage, but when it came to the consolidation and so on, they were just not the right leaders and so on. But people do come in to then play those roles. And I think that's really important, because I'm a great believer in continuity, which is another strength, but sometimes you need different roles for different kind of phases of growth. I also kind of really like, fundamental kind of future focus, and that's the idea of the things that you're doing today, which will actually enable the future. And especially when we think of vulnerable children, young people, and adults, people with disability, where we can actually draw a picture of a much better future. We just got to work out the path to actually help them on that journey. I also liked, and I refer also to this authenticity thing, and that you're absolutely right. This sector, you can smell where there isn't authenticity. It is a fundamental attribute for everybody, and it almost goes down to a support worker. You really need to know that they want to be doing the job, and then that gives them the ability to have the relationship with the clients and residents that they're working with. And then the final point, which one is very close to my heart, fundamental need to do measurement. It's been my huge frustration that we've not been able to develop kind of an approach to a standardized kind of outcomes measurement and impact measurement framework for many of the areas that we work in, especially in disability. Uniting have had lots of great work around and done work around kind of aged care, and have been behind promoting kind of impact measurement. And there's other organisations which are on that journey now. And I think we probably reached a level of maturity in the sector where it needs to be done and needs to be well. And it's great to hear that that's effectively a commitment in your strategy to deliver impact measurement for the sector. So I'll close off by thanking Claire, and also thanking Thrani for asking the questions. I thought it was a great session, and look forward to doing another one soon.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.